Hello, this is Mary again from Design and Be Mary, and today's video is going to talk a little bit about how to turn an inside and outside corner. And by that I'm talking about these peaks or these valleys. I call them inside and outside corners, and some people just don't quite know what to do with their stitching. This piece shows it very clearly with the contrasting red thread. And so we're going to cover different ways to do these corners. I'll show you a few samples of how this stitch can apply. It can apply, you can see here, V and two corners up there. And obviously it's got a little leg there. So we're going to see how they can use this. They also work very well on curves, gentle curves, and where it's not really a right angle, but you have a curve to work with that. Anyways, I've got a little sample here set up. I do work with, this is a piece, I have this wool star fused to the background, and this will probably be a mug rug or a little tile for the wall. And on the back I do have, you can see the shine, it's fusible. I don't mind stitching through fusible. I use the Jenna Kimball size 9 embroidery needles, and I've never had a problem with stickiness and slugginess on the needle. Anyways, to begin, you're going to knot your thread and bring it up from the back side. And I usually start, if I can, on an inside corner. Now, there's a couple different ways. I can make a stitch over here, or I can make a stitch here, or I can actually do a third one in the middle. And that third one has a little leg, and it may look like this on some of your pieces. In fact, this is an exaggerated third stitch as kind of a decorative element. If you look up at the top here, you'll see there is no third stitch here into the corner, but there is in this one. So we'll go over both of those techniques. But we're going to start at an intersection like this, and I am going to just do a straight stitch to start in the corner. And you begin your blanket stitch, and now I'm ready to go, and I will stitch up the side, and when I get to the top I'll show you what I do to make a nice, neat, crisp turn on the top. The other thing I'm going to mention while I stitch here is, if you are beginning and it is of great value to you, using a contrasting thread, it certainly allows you to see what you're doing, but it will also show any of your flaws. So I guess I would say choose a thread that's closer to the color of your applique, and that way you are less apt to see the flaws, and work yourself up to contrasting. Some people like the primitive look, in which case none of that is particularly significant. Some people like the charm of a not real accurate stitching, and that works. That's fine. Okay, now as we get up to this corner, I'm going to keep taking, and you can see that my stitches, you want to try and keep them kind of even. As I go up here, if I'm up here and I keep the same dip, it's closer to the other side. So what I want to do is be aware of how soon before I can't take that full depth. In other words, I can't take this full depth. If I take it on this next one, I'm going to be over, and then I'll have no place to go when I come down the other side. So what you can do is just slightly shorten that stitch to the center. And you also can gauge your distance to the top of the peak so that your stitches come out. And some of that is done as you stitch here. You can kind of eyeball it, and the more practice you do, the better you'll get at it. Okay, now to turn the top corner, I'm going to go in almost at the same hole, because I cannot take any more stitches. There's no place to go here with the stitches. So I'm going to do this here. I'm going to see if I can get a little closer with the camera. There we go. Sorry for the bit of shaking there. Anyways, so I'm going in, and I'm going to come out right about where the top of the peak is. Okay. And I'm going to pull my thread out and away towards the peak. If you have trouble doing that, use your needle to guide it. Slide your needle in there and guide it. Now, to make a nice crisp technique, what I have found works is I literally go through my wool to the back, and I catch a little bit of the back. To hold that stitch, I just catch a little bit of the back, and you don't want to go through the front. This wool is a little bit thicker. Some wools are thinner. You have to kind of pay attention to what you have. The fusible makes it much easier. So you just stitch, you just grab a little bit of that stitch, and then it will hold it. Then you turn it back, and you're going to come back up right where you took that stitch, right where your needle is coming up there. I'll turn it sideways, and it will not come through the wool because you've caught that back area. Okay, at this point you can turn your work, go back down into the hole that, or by where, across from the first stitch. In other words, if this is your first stitch, you want to come in right about there and come in here. And I'm going to turn it around so that I can pull it nice and clean. There you go. And you've got a nice, you can just by pulling up that thread, I pulled it a little tight, you've got a nice clean thing. And then as soon as you get back to probably about the third stitch, there it is, you can go back to your normal depth of a stitch. And that is one way you can turn a nice. A lot of people, if they go around a tip without taking that extra step, end up struggling and having more of a rounded tip. And maybe that works for you. I guess my point is to show you how to make, people want to know how to make a nice crisp edge. And then now we're going to head, whoops, now we're going to head towards the inside corner. Whoa, okay, I guess it's going to be one of those days today. But let's head towards the inside corner. I'm going to back up the camera a little bit here so you can see easier there. I won't float out of the frame. When you're pulling on a stitch, a few things that also make your stitches nice is a lot of people claim that their thread crawls up on top of the applique. Pull out to the side. It has a lot to do with where this thread is. So when you make your stitch, instead of pulling straight up, make sure the last little bit, oops, I got a knot there. Make sure that you pull out to the side and hold the thread there, because you see how that rolls over the top, goes to the back. Okay, now as we head towards the corner, you're going to try and judge how many stitches you can take. I know I'll take one probably about there, maybe another one there and there. So I'm going to continue. You can kind of adjust a certain amount. You want to do that maybe just a half an inch out. Okay, now I'm going to go into the corner and I'm going to make a stitch flush right into the corner. It's absolutely flush along this line. My needle is exactly the same line. And I'm going to come up and I'm going to make a regular stitch like so. Now you have a decision to make. In order to turn the corner, the inside corner, you can make another stitch lining up your needle along this way and going in, and you will get basically a stitch and it'll leave the corner empty. And I can show you, what that looks like here. If you look right here, you'll see that these 3 stitches were made along that side. These 5 stitches were made up that side. There is no third little leg in there. Obviously, this shows a leg as well, and that's up to you. Some of that can be kind of decorative. Here's another sample of how I extended that third leg if you want one in the middle. But presuming you don't want it, you would just come up like this. And let's see, okay, this just doesn't want to cooperate today. And you go into the same hole, but along the side, and there you have a nice corner, and you can continue going up the side. Okay, but there is no leg. Now, I will rip this out here in order to show you the other option, which is the ability to put that third leg in there. And let me get my needle threaded here. Okay, got that ripped out. To make the third leg, what you're going to do is you're going to align your needle into the V or the crook of it, and you can make a long stitch or you can make a short stitch. It does not make any difference. I'm going to do a long exaggerated stitch as a decorative element. So you just take maybe double the length of your stitch and you come up in the same hole as the previous stitch had and pull it into that corner. Okay, so you're right there, you're in that same hole that this stitch was made in. Okay, so there's the hole. So now you're going to turn the corner and you're going to line up your needle again with that edge. And you're going to take a regular length stitch coming up basically in almost the same hole. It doesn't make any difference if you're in the exact hole or not, but it should look as if it was in the exact hole. And you can see you get a nice decorative stitch, and it adds a little element to it. You don't have to do that if you do it a regular length. That's perfectly fine. And then you can continue stitching up the corner, and again doing on your mountaintops, if you want to call them. Some people call them mountains, some people call them valleys, and you can obviously make a nice clean top with your side. So that gives you a little bit of help with making those peaks and valleys. If there is, by the way, if there's ever any extra little wool, I'm working with very thick wool, and you'll see sometimes there's a little extra. You can take a scissors and be very careful, but you can actually just trim that little wool and it'll make the stitching show up a little bit better. Just be careful you don't clip your thread. So outside corner, you just make a smaller stitch here. You kind of decrease and make a smaller stitch, make your piece, catch it on the back, come back through, continue, and then do your valley. And you can do it with a decorative stitch, or you can leave that out and just continue on with another one. All right, hope this adds to your arsenal of stitching skills, and I will be doing another video on how to do these same things on the outside edge of a thing once you've trimmed a piece. And I have an example of a star, and I will do the same things when you are stitching and finishing an outside edge. So be sure and catch that video if you're interested in that. Have a nice day. Happy stitching. See you later. For more information, be sure and visit my website, www.designandbemerry.com. There are tutorials, resources, supplies, a blog that I occasionally write, and lots of information that may be helpful to you. Thank you.